Good afternoon. My name is Martha Jane Donovan Collins. Today is November the 11th, 2015, and I'm here today to talk with Jeanne Sposato, a Milton resident and dear friend. Good afternoon, Jeanne.
Good afternoon.
I would like to talk to you today about growing up in Milton.
Okay.
What was your most vivid memory of growing up in Milton?
The fact that we were so free to go anywhere we wanted to go. When we were kids, we were all over town. Everybody looked out for us. At night, we could go play in the graveyard, which we did. We played gravestone tag. And it was just, and we could do things that you can't do now. We could roller skate on the road because there weren't any cars, hardly any cars. We roller skated to Harbison. We went to Route 1. We could ride bikes anywhere. And it was just a good place to grow up.
What was your school days like?
Well, they were pretty good. Actually, I really had a great time in school. And I think I've already told about where the different schools I went to, so I don't know whether I should tell that again. Because I went to the real old school from the 4th to the 6th grade.
Now, where was that located?
That was located on Chestnut Street, right next to Brenda's house.
Next to the graveyard.
Yeah, it's not there anymore. And the 1st and 2nd grade, I went back on Walnut Street. There was a double house there. And I had Goldie Owens and Mrs. Commel. You remember them?
Yes, I do.
Anyway, then they built a new school in 1932, and that is now the present elementary school. And that's where I went in the 7th grade. Okay. And all classes were there, 1st through the 12th.
Okay.
And I liked school. I played basketball. That was my favorite thing to do. Sports and dancing at noontime in the auditorium. They let us do that. And studies, okay.
What was your favorite subject?
I believe it was English.
English? And who was your favorite teacher?
Mrs. Welch.
Mrs.
And she also taught French.
Did you take French?
Yes. And I liked Miss Weekly, too. She taught Latin and history.
And history.
And I liked Miss Gray. Kitty Gray, I loved her. She'd do her fingernails while we're having school. Things like that, you know.
What did she teach?
She taught English in the 7th, 8th, and 9th grades. Or 7th, 8th, I guess.
Okay.
And she was a taskmaster. And she knew what she was doing because one Halloween night, we all went out and we used to tic-tac on windows.
What does that mean?
It's a spool that you put little notches in and a string, and you put it up against a window, and it makes a real terrible noise. Or else you knock on the window and run. Or you write on the window, which I wrote on her window, mind you, my teacher. Practice what you preach. The next day, she said, Jeanne, and she had these great long fingernails. She said, you were at my house and you wrote on my window. I said, how did you know? You spelled practice wrong. You spelled it like you do in class, Practise, instead of PR. I just thought of that. Wasn't that something?
Yes.
And then another time, Marion Edgington and I went out doing the same thing, and we knocked on the preacher's window, and she broke it because she was a big, healthy, strong girl. So we run. He comes out, and he says, stop. I know who you are. So dumb us, we stopped, and he comes up and he said, now who are you? We should have kept on running.
What preacher was this?
Hudson.
Okay, the Goshen Methodist Church.
Yeah, and he was a nice man.
Okay, that's nice. Where you also went to church,
yes,
wasn't it?
Yes, I did. Mm-hmm.
Okay. What were your favorite activities when school was out? What did you do?
Well, you mean like in the summer?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I spent a lot of time swimming in the mill pond because you were able to do that then. And there were 2 bridges, first bridge and second bridge. The first bridge, the water ran under and gave power to the mill. The second bridge was the big falls.
Right.
And it's different now than it was then. But we would swim on the side that wasn't the falls, and on the other side was the big falls. And the boys would swim with us, and then sometimes they would go to Bare Ass Beach,
Now,
which
where
is
was
the
that?
swimming hole. That was behind where the funeral home is now, all the way back, because that was all wooded.
Okay.
All wooded and a path all the way through. But the girls never went there, just the boys. And that even was in Bill Wagaman's day, because he told me about it. He went there, his boys went there. I don't think my kids did, because they started building houses, you know.
In that area.
Anyway, the boys would swim at Bare Ass Beach, and the girls, some of the girls would be over on the bridge, and these Norman Postals, remember him?
Yes.
And Fred Reed swam over, no clothes on. And there we are sitting on the bridge, and we wore shorts over our bathing suit to go down to there. We took our shorts and threw them to them. They put the shorts on and climbed out, and we talked and had a little social hour. And then when it was time to go, they jumped in, took the shorts off, wadded them up, and threw them back at us.
And swam back.
Yeah, and that was kind of an unusual thing, I think.
And was there room for you to sunbathe on?
Oh yeah, you could lay on the edge.
Lay on the edge.
And that's where we spent our summers, was there. And when we were little kids, our mothers took us down behind the mill, and we had a little beach there.
Oh. And you swam.
Oh, and I wanted to tell you one thing about the bridge, the big bridge, second bridge. The side that's so terrible high from the creek, only a very few people ever dove off of that side because it was dangerous. And Joe Black did it, and well, as the generations went, there were several boys. Charles Fisher, only one girl, my sister, Pat.
And she jumped off.
She dove off. I wanted to tell you
Did
that.
she ever tell anyone?
I don't
Your
think...
mother?
Oh, no. Oh, my dear. No.
Okay.
But my mother was daring, too. She's the only girl in Milton ever climbed the water tower.
Great. The one that's over by the boat.
Big water tower, yeah.
She climbed that.
It's not the same one now. It's
Okay.
different now.
Yes,
Yep, she climbed that.
Now, what did you do in the wintertime for social activities?
Well, our church, I guess, we were in a Sunday school class, and we had meetings. We went to Miss Sarah's. She was my teacher, and she did a lot of crafts.
Okay.
And then we had a youth group that went to different towns, and you met a lot of kids that way. And then the school, a lot of school activities.
Did they have a
PTA,
band?
fairs, and things like that.
Did they have a band or a chorus?
Oh, yeah,
or
they had a
anything?
band. It was an orchestra. They had the strings. See, they've never had that since then.
Not that I
But
can
they
remember.
had that then. Mr. Kupski, he was there, and he's the one who did that.
I'm not familiar with him. I don't
No,
know.
well, you wouldn't be because you're a lot younger than me. And I'm trying to think what else. Oh, boy, we went skating for quite a while. The pond would freeze for a long, long time. And in my mother's day, it would freeze for 6 weeks at a time. And she did that. And then in our day, it would go 2 weeks at a time. And now it doesn't. I think it's because of the way the water runs down the dam now.
Were you able to skate at night?
Oh, yeah. They built bonfires out on the ice, and we skated, and we played takeaway from each other. They're hedge apples, big, hard, green things that grow. And the boys,
with them.
the girls would keep them away from the boys.
Okay.
You know, it was like catch and keep away. And I remember one time I did throw it, and I hit David Dutton in the eye. And honey, he had a shiner you wouldn't believe. Anyway, they had a shop. You know, we had shop at school then, where the boys built things, and they had a viewing of that night. And I went, and David had done something down there, and I went down, and his mother was down there, and she was mad at me because I heard him.
Was this Liza?
Liza.
But
later on, she was fine, because she was a lot of fun.
Did you have much snow? Were you able to sled anywhere?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we sledded on Tuck's Hill, which is Mulberry Street. And we go clear down to where Norma's used to be, which is Goodfellas. and we sledded on every street.
Okay.
I mean, every hill, because I think Milton's the only place downstate that has hills.
And we have our share of them.
And we do.
Yes.
You're absolutely right. And I guess that's about all I can think about that. But we did have a good time skating.
How did you and your friends keep in touch after school and out of school? There weren't cell phones and email, and how did you all get together and meet and do all these
You
different
mean after you
activities?
graduate, or
No, while you were in school.
Oh gosh, well, we did have a phone.
Okay.
And we could call our friends.
Okay.
And of course then, there was only 4 digits.
Right.
And also there was the addresses was only the street, no numbers.
No numbers?
You wrote a letter to somebody, Federal Street, the name, they got it.
Well,
It wasn't a very big town,
okay.
but we did have a stoplight right down in the middle of town that
There
a lot
was?
of people don't know about.
I don't remember that. Where was that located? Federal,
was-
Union and
It was
Federal?
at the junction of Union and Federal in front. And
Okay.
there's pictures of it, because we had pictures of that. And of course there was Wilson's big building where the bank is.
Right.
In those days, people didn't go out of town to shop. They didn't have to, because there was 12 or 13 grocery stores in Milton.
Ow.
2 dentists, 3 doctors. I mean, it was, self-sufficient little town. And I think we as a family went to Philly once a year to do shopping. And that was a big thing for us.
Was that a Christmas activity?
Yeah, Christmas. Hmm.
Yeah, and to see the Wanamaker's wreath
Right.
made in Milton.
And then we had a lot of parties. I got to talk about
Okay.
that. The kids
Tell us
had
about your
birthday
par-
parties.
Okay.
Everybody had birthday parties where they had good cake, no drinking, nothing like that. But the teenagers did play kissing games, which I guess they still do. But anyway, when I had my 16th birthday, they had it in the barn, our barn.
Okay.
And we played the kissing games. Of course, spin the bottle, you stay right in the barn. But when you play post office, you get a number, you go outside.
Oh.
And my sister and Louise Hurley, who is, you know who she is, the mother of the guy that does all the historical stuff. Oh gosh, now I knew I'd forget something.
I can't remember.
Well, anyway, Louise and Pat came out of the house and in the dark sat on the back stoop of the house and watched us as we played post office. And she never told me about that for a long time.
What was your father's profession?
Well, he was a jack of all trades. He did a lot of different things. The last thing he did was he was an insurance agent. But he worked on a lighthouse and he worked on the railroad and he did farming and timber stuff, things like that.
Okay. Was he home most all the time?
He worked for the Internal Revenue Service one time too.
Okay. Was he at home most
Yeah,
of the
he
time?
was home. He had an office at home.
He did. And your mother was busy being a homemaker?
She was a homemaker.
That's a very important
Not
job.
many women worked out in those days.
Okay. Where did your family go as a group for trips? Did you take any family trips
Yes,
besides
we went.
Philadelphia?
Yeah, we went to Washington
Okay.
and Philly, and I think that's. Oh, we went down to see my Uncle Paul in Georgia and North Carolina. He lived both places, and that was about it.
These were
We
long
didn't do-
trips, weren't
Yeah,
they?
they were long trips.
What did you do to entertain yourself on these rides with your siblings?
Well, I only had one sibling, and
Pat.
I don't know what we did. We didn't have what they have now. They can watch shows and everything else. I guess we just talked, and you can't read too well I guess we did read.
Okay.
We did a lot of reading.
What kind of activities did your family do for Thanksgiving and Christmas?
Well, we
what kind of holiday traditions
Well,
did
we
you have?
went over to Aunt Mary Alton's. The whole family,
Mhm.
of the Bryans went over there. And the best thing I remember about that was her cake. She
Was
had
it
coconut
special?
cake. Coconut cake is really good.
Fresh homemade?
Yeah, fresh.
Fresh homemade, okay. How many neighbors did you have, and what kind of relationships in your neighborhood did you
We
have?
had good relationships. I just loved Lizzie Wilson, who lived across the street next to the church. She would tell us stories, and then she would say, and you better be good because there's a guy up in my attic, and he comes down and he cuts little kids up and makes soap out of them. Of course, we knew she was just, and she would send us to the store, and there was 4 grocery stores right around. And she'd give us a nickel every time we'd go get something for her at the store. It was a lively family. You remember them?
Yes, I do.
They were a lively bunch, and they
Yes.
did a lot of fun things, and all the kids in the neighborhood loved to go there because of her. She'd hug you, and she was just something else.
Oh, that's delightful.
Yeah. And then we had Mrs. Waples, George Waples, who was very nice but real prim, real proper.
Did you visit with them much or
No, not as much as with Lizzie.
Did you go to walk to school when you lived in town?
Oh yeah, everybody did.
Everyone did?
Mm-hmm.
There was no bus for anyone?
Buses.
Okay. Now, anybody from out of town, how did they get to school?
They had the bus. They had to
did.
come on the bus. And then a lot of the kids went to country schools, and they would come to Milton in the 7th grade. They would go to their school to the 7th grade and then come to Milton.
That was a
big change.
Yes,
yeah.
big adventure coming in town to school.
Right.
How many people were in your class at school when you graduated?
Gosh, I think there was 19.
Was that one of the larger classes?
No. But they were all small.
Okay.
It was one of the smaller ones, I
One of
think.
the smaller.
A lot of the boys, when they got in the 11th and 12th grade, because it was a farming community, they would quit school. Some of them would quit school. And we had 2 or 3 in our class that quit school to stay home and work on the farms and stuff. And they'd get out early. But a couple of them didn't finish their last grade because of that.
That's understandable.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say would be your most significant memory being here in Milton, all these wonderful years you've spent here?
Well, I know one thing. When I went away to college, the first few months, because we couldn't come home every whip stitch. I didn't get to come home till Thanksgiving. And when we came home from Westchester, and I saw the town of Milton, I was so happy because I was really homesick. I just loved the town. I loved the people, and I just loved being here. I mean, I had a good childhood.
How many years have you been here?
What, on this earth?
In Milton, definitely a Miltonian resident.
Well, I was born in 1922, and then I left when I was 17 or 18, I guess. And then I stayed away because I taught school in Newark. Oh, I lived through World War II, and I was at Westchester when World War II was on, and they speeded up the course. You could go 2 summers, and you got through in 3 years. So I was 20 when I graduated, and I got a job at Newark because I would always be late when I did go home. When we'd come back, I'd be late for Dean Manhattan's sociology class, and I would say, oh, I live way down in Lower Delaware. And he remembered that I lived in Delaware. And so when there came an opening in Newark, I was called to his office, and I thought, oh my gosh, what have I done? And he said, I remembered that you live in Delaware, and there's an opening in New York, and I've made an appointment. I went down there and got the job right away. So I lived there quite a few years.
Okay, and then returned to Milton.
And then returned to Milton.
Like coming home.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jean, very much for sharing your stories with us in this interview today. My name is Martha Jane Donovan Collins, and I have been speaking with Jeanne Sposato of Milton, Delaware today.